Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4:30, and I would like to call this meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission to order. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Got a motion? Got a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. I would also entertain a moment at this time to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Customers to be heard, recognitions. Mr. General Manager.
I have none.
You have nothing.
No recognitions, no customers to be heard.
Okay, I don't see any customers to be heard. I see a lot of staff. All right. How about old business? Anyone?
I have a couple items.
All right.
I thought I'd just bring this up in this section here as far as, could somebody share with me, I see an expenditure of $55,000 for skid steer here. Do we look at always making a direct purchase, or we look at leases or term payments for cash flow purposes, or what's the thought process there? This work.
That's mine.
John, can you repeat the question?
I just thought, we talked a little bit here, no business, it was a billing, there was a skid steer purchase for $55,000 last month. And when I looked at that, I just thought, I just did for clarification, if we look at lease option, term payment option for cash flow purposes, or do we always just pretty much get policy to make a purchase straight out?
Chris Knudsen, Water Division Manager. We've rented them for the past several years, and this year we just decided it was in the budget. We purchased the skid steer, and it was actually cheaper than the state bid list price. So it was I believe it was like a national bid list price. I don't remember the name of the bid list, but it was a very competitive price for the skid steer.
And for a piece of equipment, that's what we expect 5 to 7 years, think about that? Or
10 years. 10 years is an expected replacement time.
Okay.
So
Okay.
roughly, we were spending $6,000 to 8,000 to rent it. We just decided to purchase it because we use it so much.
Okay, fair. And then another item here, it was listed on capital projects, the Weldwood project that we spent about $75,000 on with a couple different vendors. Remind me of what that project is.
I can take care of it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. That was, we talked about that project a while back. That project is for insulating the Wellwood building. We're converting that building to equipment storage. And, yep. So that project is ongoing.
Okay, good. I couldn't remember which project.
I believe, yeah.
Okay, great. And then the final item here, I had, it's shared with me by a few people that they don't like this location. First off, it's not live, which they don't like. I said, well, it's taped. And they understand that. So they were just concerned here that we were meeting here and the preference, in their opinion, that we meet at our regular meeting. Just passing that information.
I think that's worthwhile knowing. We aren't supposed to be tape delayed, even this long. We were talking before the meeting began that we're surprised it's taking this long to get the equipment here that will allow for this to be a live meeting. And now over the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to be missing from this location because it's scheduled for a tour next month, June. Yeah. So we're going to tour water facilities in June. And in July, the meeting would be on the 3rd of July. I don't think we're going to do that one. So, I think that's one for the nation's birthday. We'll probably let that one go. So it would probably be August before we're back. And I would imagine by the time we get to that meeting in August, that we'll have the capacity to live. So to answer that specific question or concern, I think we'll be okay by the time we meet in this space again. If there are any other concerns, I know we talk about accessibility and we have elevator service. We need to make sure that there's clear directions into the space. But my opinion is that this becomes a very productive place for those kinds of planning meetings that we had intended to do here. We haven't done so much strategic planning as we had talked about. If we use it for that kind of a working meeting, I think it's a conducive space for that kind of work, as opposed to being in the laboratory. So that's my response to this. But we'll be live. Next time we meet, we'll be live. Anything else, John? Okay, sorry. Anyone else? While we're on the subjects. Item number 8, reports. Chuck, you're here for the city council.
Yes, sir. Not much going on right now except for the 2021st, and we have a special council meeting on Monday, I believe, with the bidding process. Our city staff is working on it right now, so just go ahead and hold that.
It had been our plan to be talking about that this night, but I think really due to the circumstances with the bids coming in the way they did and so forth, we have to allow the city council to have the first shot at this conversation.
Yeah.
And then as ideas and plans come together for how to respond as a community, then I think we can get engaged and chime in with you. So
Absolutely.
Other than that, I just think it'd be premature for us to get into that topic at this point. But we'll be glad to step up and join the conversation. Thank you.
Okay. But other than that, that's it.
Anyone else? Any further comment on that?
Well, maybe a quick question, Travis. We haven't started building anything yet, right?
Not yet. Our contractor for the distribution work would like to start potentially next week. With that, we'd like to get some of that stuff buttoned up. There's still a lot that needs to be done. We're probably somewhere at 25 to 35% complete. So, at least getting it to a stopping point would be a good thing. I guess that's kind of where we're at with it.
And from a supplies perspective, we have ordered stuff in to cages for the footings and everything, so we wouldn't be holding anything up if all of a sudden they say, go.
No, we can still get those approvals and stuff taken care of. Some of that's actually been approved already. It's just a matter of telling them when they can start construction. So, and I think the cages will be here either, the anchor bolt cages will be here next week or the week after, I think, is what I was told. So it's a couple weeks out yet. So hopefully by the time the city council is able to figure out what's going to happen with the bids that they came in, we can have some direction on where we want to go.
So we're okay with this time frame of just kind of?
I think we're all okay. We've got, like I said, the distribution work that can move forward for now. We might have to stop it at some point in time just because it gets to a point of uncertainty, but there's a lot of things that they could do internally to get it somewhat buttoned up.
Okay. And I know you're talking to the city engineer regularly. So.
Yep, yeah, we had a good conversation yesterday, and basically kind of what Chuck said is the exact same thing I got out of Bob yesterday, so.
Okay. Anything else on that? Anything else, Jack? Okay. Public Service Commissioners.
Quick one, we had a G4 meeting, but I think we'll talk about that.
We do have that in just a little bit. Yeah, we can get to that. Chris? Anything? No, we're good. You already had your, okay. General Manager, Bill.
I have nothing.
Okay, moving right along. And I think we just talked about 20th for now. Let's talk about item number 9, the electric fund transfer agreement as proposed for the period of 2019 to 2023 with the city of Moorhead. Who would like to start? Do you want to start or want me to start?
Sure, so we had a meeting up at B4 about 2 weeks ago, and talked about the transfer agreement, was the main topic actually, and we already had a meeting about that. So the proposal on the table is, we have originally a proposal to have a 4-year extension of the current agreement. The current agreement was for 4 years, so we extended for another 4. And as we were talking, Chuck and Heidi were in as well as was Chris Bunkers, we said, well, maybe we should even look at a longer term. So we do 6 years, 5 years, so I think the current proposal is going to be a 5-year agreement with $125,000 per year increase of the transfer. So basically continuing what we've done the last 4 years, continuing for the next 5 years. We talked about that both sides are probably going to be slightly unhappy about that agreement, which means it's a good agreement. So the proposal on the table is to actually do that. And I think that's the proposal of the commission here to you guys to say, are we going to do that for that another 5 years? A big benefit of that agreement has been for all of us, for both of us. We know what's going to happen by way of transfer. There's no more discussion on the 28th of December on what needs to be done and not to be done.
The good old days.
The good old days. We also talked in the meeting about the fact that with our revenues being flat, it has to be understood by everybody that, you know, with our revenues being flat, the transfer going up, that the percentage is going up for the benefit. We don't have much new revenue coming in. You know, residential only adds a certain amount to our revenue. We have revenues go down both on the water and electric side because people are just using less with LED lights and less water usage, so the revenue is just not coming in. So it's a good agreement that it really sets the floor. It sets, we all know what's going to happen next 5 years, but we also all need to understand that from a revenue perspective, we have flat revenues for all intents and purposes. And with flat revenues, you know, if your expenses go up, we all know where that's going to end. So having said that, if anybody has an idea of getting somebody with a big refrigeration into town, like a big transfer center, or anybody that uses a lot of electricity, we would love that. Anybody who would love to use a lot of water, we'd love that as well. But having said that, so the proposal is, John, chime in anytime, obviously, is that we go with a 5-year extension of our current agreement.
John?
And the only addition to that is that we had a good discussion about upcoming capital expenditures for Moorhead Public Service. And there's a recognition that you're looking at approximately $10 million in the next couple of years here, and that's going to create challenges as well here for us. So I think it was a good exchange. You know, each manager shared their thoughts here, defending their cause, and as a result here, I think Rob said that we didn't take both sides here, and it's a program that worked before, and I think, again, the strength of it is for budgeting purposes here, that everybody will know what the plan is going in the future. I did like Bill to make a little bit of a clarification though. Here in one of your bullet points, you said we have a $125,000 increase, total increases of $1,875,000 over the 5-year term. Could you share how you calculated that?
That calculation is basically the 125 goes up 1 year and it never goes away. So that stays for the full 5-year period. And the next year it goes up again. And the next year it goes up again. So that's the total, you know, from where it would be if we didn't have any increase to where we're going up 125 each year.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. And, you know, the other thing that, like Ralph talked about, our concern is sales have been flat. And in the commercial side, sales have been negative because we lost Sam's Club and we lost Family Fare. And that was about 1% of our sales, just those two entities. So commercial means a lot more to us than residential, because residential is very efficient with LED lighting and all that. So, and it's a good thing that our sales are flat because everybody's being more efficient, but it is, you know, challenging. So.
I have a question.
Questions?
I do. Ralph, you said that both sides were a little bit unhappy. What was the city's position?
From what we understand, there's interest by some council members maybe to increase the 125 to a higher number. So, which has been the past. I mean, we've seen increases of $350,000 to $500,000 in the past. Those were the good old days. That was a joke.
That's why we all laugh.
Because we proposed in the meeting too, is there a way for us maybe to reduce the increase, not to add 125, but that's when we had the discussion, that there may be some interest on some council members' parties, maybe even increase the percentage. So,
But I'm concerned the council members recognize that the sales have been flat there. I don't think they realize it, so it's a burden, you know, so. Yeah, sure, we'd like more money, but I mean, you know, you gotta look at the big picture, and, you know, sales have been flat, so we'll have to. And Heidi and I will explain that during the next council meeting when this transfer agreement comes up. I don't know if it's gonna be the next council meeting or the council meeting after that, but we'll explain in detail why we came to that number.
As we get into the conversation, I think it's really important that we point out the transfer that goes down.
No.
You know, as Bill was just explaining, it always goes up. And, you know, a few years ago when we had the $70,000 question, it turned into a $140,000 question, you know, because it's layered in, and then the next year it's there again. And that's how the transfer has grown to the level it has, and it's one of the key complaints that I have about the way the transfer is interpreted based on the charter, because it never goes down. It always grows, and then what it has grown by in the previous year becomes part of the budgeted line that becomes part of what we fund. And I don't read the charter telling us that we're supposed to do it that way. But we've done it that way for 40 years. And now what we're trying to do is at least shrink the growth of it. You know, it's really hard to start to get it to go down, and it won't be possible until we actually have an agreement that is based on sales.
Right.
You know, but right now, we're doing the best we can with really the decisions that we have to make. And so it was a big step 4 years ago. I think it's still a continuing big step for us, because we're not looking at $500,000 or $700,000 in a given year to where we have to face the folks that pay the bills and say, we need to raise your rates so we can do this. So.
and that's a good point, but what you said and what John said as well. We talked about the big projects, right? I mean, we talked about 2 weeks ago. I mean, we have a $6.5 million sludge ban coming into a part of our business that has a $9 million annual budget. Right? That is a big chunk on a rather small budget. And we have the same thing on the electrical side. If you want to go underground, if you want to extend it, make the network even more safe or more reliable than it currently is. If there is those things coming up, one more thing. We were lucky last year, over the last couple of years, we were able to put some money aside into our reserves to get the reserves back to a level where they need to be, which they hadn't been at for 10 or more years. There was a windfall we got one time, we were able to put that money away. But if there is an expense like this coming, there's only one place where we can go to get the money. And that is to our ratepayers to say we need to spend $6.5 million for slush pad, we need to spend $4 million on X, Y, and Z on water or whatever it may be. For us, there's only one way to go, one place to go. And everybody needs to be aware of that. And, you know, that's what I said. We were both really unhappy about the agreement, but it is still an increase in our expenses.
Attachment A is a draft of the agreement that has been prepared between the Moorhead Public Service and the City of Moorhead. Is the commission prepared to take action on this tonight? It's a pretty straightforward extension of what we've been doing.
Has been reviewed by Judge Bolger.
Reviewed by our council. It is on city council's desk, but they have not taken action. So I would imagine Mr. Schlafly will have that for a week.
You sure?
Yeah. So what's your pleasure? I'd entertain a motion if you're ready to do this.
So I move to approve the electric fund transfer agreement for 2019 to 2023 with the City of Moorhead, which is the first time I've ever read a whole motion.
Can I
You know, you-
jump in for just a second?
Please do. No,
If
no.
Shockley has minor changes, can those be reviewed by John Bolger and approved? Considering with his discretion or?
Subject to legal approval, how do you usually do that?
You'll bring anything
Yeah.
to us that needs to be done.
It's substantially informed.
Substantial
Yeah.
part,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would it be best to wait on this motion right now?
I'm either or on it.
I think from just looking at it, there just seems to be
updating terminology as far as from the previous one. So the last one is acceptable with the updated version. I don't see a lot of material changes that would be needed. So I would feel comfortable with seconding.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Item number 10 is to approve the 2018-2020 strategic plan for Moorhead Public Service, tabled on December 5th, and discussion continued through April 3rd, 2018. Bill, why don't you lead us off, because you did provide some editing and some notations for us that we might help us in the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, typically, we do our strategic planning in the fall, or we approve it typically in the fall. The commission wanted to take a look at a few things on the strategic plan, and we talked a lot at a couple of meetings about approving the directions, and when you approve them, we're kind of moving in that direction. And I know there was one strategic direction that in particular the commission was really concerned about, and that was the one goal 3.3, which was to unite the MPS team at one location. And that location would be up here, and that was an uncomfortable thing to kind of set that direction. What I did from the last time we talked about this till now is I just struck the words "at one location." So basically, and I end one sentence that talks about one location. Basically, then it just talks about uniting the MPS team, which from a culture standpoint is what we're doing. We're just not doing it, we have multiple locations. And so take that off, and then we basically would punt the discussion until fall, where we would pick this up again, have some discussion about it, and then approve it again for next year. So with that, I mean, I would recommend that you approve it, because summer is coming and meetings are going to be short, and we're going to be busy doing other things. So if you're comfortable with that, I would recommend that.
Well, from my point of view, and I've really been standing in the way of that language, for a lot of good reasons, but what I would really like to accomplish between now and when we do take it up again is that we have a good focused conversation about the topic, so that the five commissioners are all engaged and heard on that topic, because it's more than just us putting everybody in the room. It really has a great deal to do with our relationships with the city, as well as some capital expenditures that would come into play with that. So I'm happy with that change of language for now, and I would be happy to vote for that change at this point, so that we can start to generate that other conversation, but move on with the plan, so we've got a plan in place. The other piece that we were talking about here was
Some customer service.
customer service, and that's another one of those in focus conversations that I think would be helpful for the whole commission to really get into. We talk about efficiencies and so forth, but I'm concerned that we only have really one section of that efficiency section where we mention customer service. It's a good statement, but I think we can do more to permeate what we're doing with customer service and maybe get a little bit into the conversation about how it is that we're doing collections, how it is that we're doing billings, how it is that we're communicating with our customers. That's a bigger conversation that I think is overdue. So that's my take on it. Folks, anything that you might have?
I had 3 areas where I think we maybe can be more specific, and it doesn't need, I don't think it needs to be changed in this document, but when we have our discussion, maybe some thinking points. The first one is on 1.5, we talked about IT efficiency, and I think we should be very specific in that area with safety, cyber attacks, and maybe even throw the GIS stuff in, because we're doing some really, really good stuff, both on water and electric side, to figure out what needs to be done where. I think it can be somewhat specific there. On goal 2.4, we talk about the overall financial position it would make sense because we talk about it all the time to talk a little about the bond rating and the reserves in general, but that's a big part for us because that's where it really makes a big difference for us and the city for that matter. And then the last one I have is on the fifth one, where we're talking about innovative technologies. I think we should talk about whether it's a goal or not, the specific things we do and continue to do, whether it's one of the first ones with the wind, one of the first ones with the solar guard, one of the first ones with geothermal, talk about e-car, whatever that is. I think we can be more precise here, whether it goes in here or as part of our discussion. I think those are things we should really talk about, because we have been at the forefront for so many years and very successfully, that we continue to drive that as well. Which is a funny thing to say after we just got talking about the fact that we reduced our revenues are flat because of all these things we do, but it's part of what we do and have to do. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
And just for clarification on 3.4, one of the last two words there, you say, develop, maintain, and replace as employees retire and combine. I think we have more instances of people moving on than through just retirement. So we need to kind of wordsmith that a little bit, if you will, as far as, I don't think if you read that just specifically, you're just talking about when people retire. But so we want to be more a little bit inclusive of all people.
You bet, yeah.
Okay.
Is it as simple as changing and to or?
Yeah.
Or, okay, we can do that. And then we can look at it again this fall.
Yeah.
To that. Okay, Casey?
Hold on one second. Retire or move on? That's it?
Yeah.
Just that? Okay.
For now.
Or not? Yes.
That way we can do it in a motion. Chris, anything from you?
The only thing that I want to reiterate, I think you said it, was the education piece. As we move into a position where we're going to have to raise rates, we need to pay for the grade separation as well as keeping up with the transfer. I think that education piece is really imperative. And I don't know, I think we need to have a conversation about how the best way to go about that is.
That's fair. I'd like to see how we can plug this into the communities, to the city of Moorhead's strategies for growth as well. That's another conversation on top of this, but there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of really good stuff going on, and I think that I'd like to know that we're really stepping up as a part of that development team, not only for the city of Moorhead, but really for part of the Moorhead community. We're investing and we're in conversations with EDC and EDA and Chamber, all of the various groups in downtown, various groups that are growing things. So it might be that we want to develop that, our language on that, and what it is that we can do to be supportive of that. And that gets into rates again. That's another conversation about how it is that we charge and participate in that recruitment of industry and business. So I think we got lots to do.
Yeah, good discussion.
Yeah.
For not really wanting to talk too much about it.
Yeah.
It'll go well.
Yeah. Okay. With that, shall we try to approve what we have? And that way we have a plan that we're adding to and making our progress reports on over the next several months. And then this fall, we edit some. I'd be open to a motion to approve. So moved. We have a motion, got a second?
There's a second and then there's a question.
And then any discussion?
Okay,
Yeah.
second.
Okay, got a second discussion?
So the approval or the motion is with the items noted in our discussion? Or
Just that one change, the
One
word.
change from your end
Yeah.
to or, and then the changes are in that document.
The ones that are
That are currently in the
Where
document.
we have lined out
Yep.
the the location.
With bills and language.
With bills and those.
Okay.
Yep.
And it'll be in the minutes next week, or next meeting, right? I mean,
The
we'll put a
motion?
copy of this, do we put a copy of the plan in the minutes or not?
We haven't,
But at least get the document up today.
Yes,
So
the
when we call for the
document,
document, the document's available,
Mm-hmm.
and it's updated for you.
So the points that the county commissioners made here, that will be in the minutes, so we will know what we want to come back to discuss in the future.
I took notes of those, and we'll talk about that at staff level during our retreat, and then we'll prepare to talk about those for the fall. So I think we would tee them up.
Yeah, if you would compile these, because as you said, we have good discussions. And let's not lose these ideas.
And I would personally like to probably see that in the minutes, so we remember 4 months from now what the plans were that were discussed by the commissioners, so we can come back to that. So, that's what we'll do.
Put it in the notes.
So to be clear then, we're not going to try to meet this summer to talk about the strategic plan and push that to the fall,
Or do we have those conversations with them?
Well, we can,
The meeting times were becoming very
Right,
difficult.
right.
Yeah, so you're suggesting that we delay that 3-hour,
well, I would say, June, well, May was going to be difficult when we talked earlier for a couple of commissioners, so we couldn't get anything in May. And then June is difficult.
Same reasons.
Same reasons, yeah. And, in June, late June, actually, more public service staff gets together and does a staff retreat on these items. So if you were gonna look at doing something on a Saturday morning, I would suggest doing it in August, because that's right before we start our budgeting in late August and September. I mean, if I was gonna pick a month to do a Saturday morning, August would be a nice month to do that. If you pushed it off a little bit, September would be fine as well. And then you get into the fall where we're doing budgeting and planning at the same time. It would be more ideal if you did it like right before our budgeting.
Can staff do us a favor and give us a bit of a leg up? And when you meet in late June, can you take those items of our conversation tonight and work them
Absolutely.
into what it is that you're doing, so maybe we get it started?
Yep.
You could wordsmith with that and give your thoughts on what it was that we were at least expressing here. And plug that in and then let's see what it looks like.
I got all those notes, so.
That would allow us not to be in September, but do it before September.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because then we're going to be busy again. So, yeah. August would be great if we could do something in August. August is much better than June and July.
do you want me to shoot something out for August now?
Sure.
So doable same time, Saturdays, 9 to noon, or 1 to 4?
I think we might be a little bit early, because I don't know about your world, but mine changes quite a bit from 2 months from
Okay,
now.
that's
I don't
what
know
I'm
if I really know, it's, will be later in August.
Put it on the file for June. Yeah.
Which is like next month.
Late June.
Late June? Okay.
Yeah, okay. June is next month. Jeez. I remember next month. I just realized that. Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussions before we call to the vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Item number 11 is to close the meeting for executive session.
I have one question I forgot to ask earlier.
Oh, okay.
May I?
Okay, please do.
Say, Chris, ozone, when are we shutting the ozone down?
We're going to shut it down on Monday, actually. I think we can get around, we looked at it really hard. I don't think we're going to have to do big press releases. We probably were. I think it'll be less than impactful changeover than what it does today.
But just as a heads up to everybody, to all our customers, if the water tastes a little bit different come Monday, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
We'll be back.
We'll be back. We'll be back. So,
Get lots of press. Go on lots of radios,
Yeah.
shows, get lots of press, tell the world about it, otherwise. It's gonna taste funny, because you won't see this for 2 weeks.
well, it'll taste like the rest of the state, right?
You were thinking it was the other end, but it's probably won't notice.
So maybe a day or two, and we have not done this in 20 years, right? First time?
No, we did it during the river pump station project. We have to do it for 2 weeks. We'll actually have to do it if the grade separation project goes forward. We'll have to do it for like a month. I think it's latter part of the summer. So, but we'll just won't talk about that too much yet. Yeah.
So our phone crews, customer service people, they're all up to speed, though, they don't. Okay. For the public that pay attention, item number 11 is to close the meeting, although I don't think we're going to close the meeting for this. This would have been an item for us to begin an evaluation of our general manager and his performance, but what we have is some paperwork to actually begin on that. So we have questionnaires to the commissioners that are going to be receiving, so we can start that process. And then, John, you had a concern that.
Well, yes, I think also when you hand that out, Bill, also what the performance evaluation is from last year. And then also, what we did last year, and I would certainly think would be appropriate this year, we had the evaluation by the commissioners as well as key staff members, and we haven't talked about that specifically here. I think it was a good process and was able to get input from staff members as far as what their thoughts and suggestions, recommendations, so we can follow something as far as similar. And I can't remember who handled that exactly here, if that was Jerry or whatever, Nancy, how we got that out to staff. So if we could just take a look at that and follow similar to how we did it last year. That might have time, obviously, it's going to kind of
Somebody Jerry this year. Would Jerry be ready? Where would we do that?
Well, either Jerry or John Trombley, that's what we're using. That's an independent source anyway. It would be I think they use some kind of survey online type of thing.
I think that, I think that was really a good set for us too. I don't know, I think those comments, in key staff are important as well. So I wouldn't have a problem with it. We can get it done. Okay.
But I think what we did last year when we sent it out, we asked for how them completed and returned to us. Got a little bit dragged out, so we'll just try to get this completed in
2 weeks. So I think that's what we're going to try to do. 2 weeks from tonight? 3 weeks?
Well, if you're going to send it out, if you're going to ask Trombley to do it, I'm guessing it's going to be a little longer than that.
Okay.
Just
Let's settle on a process so that we don't drag that. End of May then? Is that too long?
to get the process? Or, well, we'll come back on the 15th with something.
Okay, because we want to get them filled out, get them done, get it back so that we can comply.
So can't we just, we have documents, can just fill it out?
Yeah. So at least we're on something done.
You could use that document and just have the staff fill those out. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about a 360 where it would be my direct, people that report directly to me, and then the commissioners would fill it out. They could fill out that same form, get it back to, either could get it back to Jerry or Nancy, John. You don't want to really compile them.
Well, I just thought since I did it last year, it would be give another different viewpoint here of how I did it and the comments I made certainly fit last year, but I'm just thinking if another commissioner use their background experiences review performance evaluation may be an option. So that's what I'm saying.
So, do you want Jerry to gather them all together and give them to you? Is that- And actually just use the paper,
Well, we'll find
because that
somebody.
would be quicker than doing it.
Yeah, we'll figure out what's going to do.
we'll use that form, and then we'll just get that out, and tell everybody to get it back in 2 weeks, and then we can,
Okay,
that sounds good.
that'd be great. I think that's good. Yeah, 2 weeks. Because it'd be really nice if this doesn't be inside of 4 or 6 weeks. Yeah, that'd be a miracle. All right, so we don't need to take action on this tonight, let's just get the work done.
I've actually got these right here, so I'll give you.
Upcoming meetings, is anyone traveling soon to go to meetings in Sioux Falls, Minneapolis, and other places?
Ralph and I are going to Sioux Falls for the annual meeting,
Okay.
Missouri River Energy Services.
Okay.
AWWA? Ralph was looking at that, I'm
That's
not
what
sure.
we're going to talk about, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good conference.
John, you were waving your hand.
I will not be here for the next meeting.
Oh, you won't be here for the next week. All right. You gonna miss the water?
No, that's May 15th.
Oh,
That's the next meeting.
That's 16.
May 15th.
He's not gonna be here for the next week.
Oh, that's-
Water tour, June 5th.
June 5th, water tour.
Oh, June, oh, excuse me.
So please don't volunteer me for unknown duties.
Oh, no, it's a challenge.
All right. And then I'm not looking for any travel in the next 2 months on the application. All right, anything else, folks? Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We're done. Thank you very much.